This week on Previews World Weekly, the X-Men have an election, Jeff Lemire doubles down on Image, and cops are chasing Pokemon. It's all happening right now on Previews World Weekly.
What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm your other host, Ashton Greenwood, a.k.a. the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day. You guys. It's officially 2022, which means Free Comic Book Day is this year, 5 short months away in May. Head over to freecomicbookday.com. Check out the full list. It's 46 books. Get excited. Get hype. I'm already hyped. It's going to be a long 5 months, but you know how it is.
There you go. There you go. Dave Brown. Hello again. What's up, Dave Brown?
Hi, Dave. Dave, if you're interested, you can go to freecomicbookday.com and check out the 46 titles available for free at your participating local comic shop. I know I sound ridiculous, but like really, there is a ton of awesome comics. Marvel has 3 titles. There's a Buffy title. There's an Archie title. There's a Bloodborne title. If you're a video game fan, Sonic, Pokemon, like there's literally something for everybody.
For everybody. Absolutely. Ubaldo. Hello. I see some regulars here in the chat today. Much appreciated. Oh, look at that. Okay, and we got 3 likes already. We barely put in the work yet. I'm with it.
Oh man,
I like that. I like to see that. So Ashton, Hakes is a thing.
It's a thing. It's happening.
Yes,
they auction things.
They auction things. They definitely do. There is a lot of stuff. That, you know, we're past the point of one portion of the auction itself, right? But there's still a bunch of stuff that's still available to bid on. And I just wanted to give a little shout out to the most recent Hakes auction because it's going down now. Some of it looks like, from what I saw earlier, I was looking at the website earlier, it looks like the political memorabilia stuff that was yesterday and that has already passed. I'm sorry, that's going to pass, but like the 19th is when the last is. I got the dates completely wrong in my head. I just realized that.
Love to be looking directly at something and still read it wrong.
Right, still read it wrong. It closes next week, not this week. I totally screwed that up. I'm sorry, guys. But there's a lot of Star Wars stuff up for grabs if you're not big into the political memorabilia. There's also some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff, which kind of took me back when I was looking at it earlier. Some Ghostbuster stuff that I definitely remember having when I was a kid. Some Secret Wars stuff. Because they had the Mattel action figures back in the day. I was actually wondering, this might be a question for Johnny, because I know he's done a deep dive on this. Is there a Boba Fett in there for some of the old school Star Wars toys?
I think there was. You know what? Let me do a check here.
Yeah, because that's our new favorite thing right now. So I was just out of curiosity. Let it go. We love Boba Fett. Okay, yeah, man, that's got to be something. So not in box. It definitely has been removed from the box, but yeah, I mean, still, that's a little piece of nerd history right there. Look at that.
It looks like it is graded, though.
It's in good condition.
Yeah, 80 plus near mint. Okay, near mint. Okay, loose action figure. All right, how much is that one going for?
That one is going for $130. Here's another one. No, is this? Ooh, here's a Boba Fett.
Still okay, that's one in the box. Okay.
Oh dang.
Look at that. Yeah.
I love how some of these have like a little bit of tape on the side. Like you can tell like this was actually played with by a kid or something at some point. So
right, yeah.
if you're bidding on this might have been yours at some point.
At some point in time, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So the current bid on that is $275, but each of these items in this auction did start at $9.99. $9.99. So
and by next week, expected to be going for a lot more. People are being conservative right now because they're trying to outbid each other, but it's going to get heated by next week. That's a guarantee.
Yep. What's still $9.99 though is this Sadukar blaster. I looked at all of the Dune stuff after last week's show, and this gun, the laser gun, is still only $10. I'm sure it won't be now that I've opened my big math about it.
Right. But and we did say that this is actually like merchandise for the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from the David Lynch movie.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Like I didn't even know they made toys for David Lynch movie.
Neither did I.
There was another thing in here. I saw that there were Rambo action figures. I mean, again, talking about stuff that's like kind of a weird thing to make toys for. But at the same time, there's also some Pee-wee's Playhouse stuff in there as well, which I noticed earlier today. So, long story short, check it out, guys.
Let me get this. That's the mail-in Boba. Cover Price Comics saying there was the boba that was only available mail-in with proof of purchase. I don't know
if that's what that is.
I can't speak to that. Let me see here. It talks about has been punched. Original store price sticker at top right. That might not be it. Maybe it was this one. No, I don't see anything that says about it like it was an original one, like it had to be like with proof of purchase.
I would feel like it would be, but the ones that were the originals, I mean the one that was the mail-in one, I actually watched that Boba Fett documentary on Disney Plus. That wasn't on a card, like that didn't have it wasn't wasn't packaged, right? It just kind of came loose, right? And like a little clear box or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to use right, yeah, it just kind of came in a clear box that they mailed off to you, if I remember correctly. If I remember correctly from what I saw in the Boba Fett documentary on Disney Plus. But long story short, we don't know.
All right, yep.
But yeah. Dave says, never toss anything. It may come around again. I mean, that's fair. That's very fair.
It's true.
Cover Price Comics, had to buy 5 toys and mail in UPC. Okay, wow. All right. Nice.
Back for that one.
I mean, well, you know what? You don't have to buy 5 toys and do a mailing. You just got to bid at the Higgs auction.
Make it easy.
We make it easier. Maybe. I don't know. It's I imagine it's going to get heated by next week. But yeah, definitely up for debate. But yeah, check it out. It's Higgs.com, and yeah, they're just doing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool auction stuff, and it definitely got me in the nostalgia feel. So definitely check it out if you're a big kid like me. Big kid like Johnny, big kid like Ashton. Definitely something to look forward to. Canada X is in the chat. What's she saying here? We have an original Boba Fett that sits on our mantle next to his ship. Oh, nice. Whoa. All right.
Nice.
So where's your address, Natasha?
Right, where you live again?
All right, what else we got here? You know what? One thing I meant to show this to Johnny. I don't know if you can find it now, Johnny. There was a Superman movie style boxed viewer film, which as I looked at it, I realized like, oh my God, this is like the predecessor to the Viewmaster. Like it was like, you might not know what a Viewmaster is, Ashton. I'm not sure, but it's like one of those things where it's there's like these little circular film things you put in, and like you would click the side of it, and it would move an image around. Yeah. And so they had this really old school one that was like called a Superman in movie style boxed viewer film. And I just thought that was really fascinating. Like I was just, just something interesting that I didn't know existed. And I was like, oh, it's like a Viewmaster. That's interesting. Okay. Did you find it, Johnny? Yeah, this thing, right? And I just thought, yeah.
So what do you do with it?
So like that little thing in the middle, you put the little film slide in there, and like I guess Superman moves around with whatever the film slide is in the little boxes there. So yeah, I just thought that was fascinating. I mean, look, I just found out about this today, and it's definitely it's before both of us were born. So
perfect.
So don't feel too bad. But you know what? Let's talk about things that we have been around for. How about that? As recently as this week. Here's what's at comic shops. Ashton and I are going to give you our picks this week, and then we're going to show you some of the titles that are available at your local comic shop. Check it out. All right, Ashton, I've been talking over you. I'm sorry about that. How about you go first, and I just be quiet for a little bit?
It's completely okay. I feel like we're talking over each other.
It's okay. I think we're both excited for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. On one today for some reason.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay, so my pick this week is The Many Deaths of Layla Starr from Boom Studios. It's a trade paperback, which I'm really excited about. I somehow missed this when it first came out, but the synopsis of it is great, totally up my alley, and I think you guys will be excited about it too. So in this story, humanity is on the verge of discovering immortality and how they can basically cheat death. And as a result, death itself is cast down to Earth to live a mortal life in Mumbai as 20-something Layla Starr. So she's walking on Earth now, and she's struggling with this concept of being mortal after having been the Grim Reaper, after having been immortal for her entire existence. But she finds herself at the same time and place as the person that will discover immortality. So she's alive the same time they are. And so she's forced to decide if she wants to try and stop mankind from cheating death and altering the life and death cycle, or if she wants to allow death to become a thing of the past. And it's told through this realm of magical realism, which I think is a great idea because this is such a big topic. It's such a heavy topic. Because this is something that scientists today are even working on and trying to figure out. So if you approached it in a really realistic way, it might feel really daunting and create an existential crisis. You never know. So I think exploring it in a more fantastical way makes it much more digestible. But this is also one of those things like robots, where it's like, I think it opens up a conversation about like, is this something we should do? Like, what are the ultimate consequences of it? And just because we can do a thing doesn't mean we should. So I think this could be a really interesting conversation. So I will definitely be getting my hands on this.
No, I feel like I've mentioned this on the show before. If not, I've definitely mentioned it off camera or probably online to people. It was one of the best books of last year. Like the one out of all the comics I read, that was one of the best ones.
Really?
And I think the only crime here is that Boom Studios, you should have released it in an oversized hardcover because it looks so good. It looks so good. Like every issue I was reading, the floppies, and I just kept thinking to myself, like, oh God, I hope they do this as an oversized hardcover. It's not too late, Boom. You can do this. Please do this because it's just a great looking book. And just like you said, it asks some interesting questions. For sure. So I'm all for that. I hope you definitely want to know what you think of it when you read it. Monkey Jeebus says death is something that is not to be solved. Okay, he's coming down hard on that. Okay.
I mean, I have not read this yet, but my knee-jerk reaction is to agree with him. I think the way things occur naturally is probably that way for a reason. So I don't know that you should be tinkering with the natural cycle of things. That seems like that's going to create more problems than it's going to solve. I don't know. What do I know?
Well, I mean, it opens up a conversation about overpopulation, and we could also get into the whole thing of you talk about the natural decay of the human body, right? Then we get into like cosmetic surgery and biohacking and all sorts of other stuff that's are real things that happen now. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a great book, and I would definitely check it out.
Aspen Comics did a title. I think it was called. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. I want to say it was called New Way, but I'm not 100% certain, so don't quote me on that. But they did a book 3 years back that was about kind of what you're talking about, and about like cybernetic enhancements and playing around with like the natural body and the decay of the natural body, and how introducing cybernetic enhancements creates a new kind of classism. It was really interesting.
Actually, I will point out my comic Fight of the Century, coming soon to your local comic shop, also talks about this subject. So something to look forward to, guys. You know what, Ashton, my pick this week, right? I got to say up front, to heck with people who are just hating on Mark Miller. I've been on Facebook maybe too much the last several weeks. And every time I bring up Mark Miller in some of these groups, people are like, oh, he hates superheroes. His stuff is gross. It's distasteful, blah, blah, blah. Look, maybe I just want a little distaste every now and then. Maybe I just want something something with a little bit of bite, something with a little bit of teeth. And that's what Mark Miller does for me. So he's got a book out this week. It's actually the second issue of a book called King of Spies. And it is from Image Comics. Issue 1, I picked it up on a whim. I read it. And you know what? It was cool. And the story of this shoot. Sorry, wait a minute. I totally lost my notes. He always gets great artists on this. First of all, let me point that out. First of all, the Millar World stuff always has really good artists on it, and this one is Matteo Scalera, who's done a bunch of great stuff. I feel like they've worked before on something else prior, but the artwork's great. And on top of that, it's just like a fun story. It's just really punchy, really to the point. Miller's whole premise for this is that you have this basically super spy, right? And he's basically been a tool of the government for years, and he's finally become an old man. And so just imagine James Bond in his post-retirement years, and he's starting to kind of look around at the world around him. He's kind of like, man, we actually made the world worse. You know what I mean? We've done damage to the working class. And so he has all these regrets, and he's kind of trying to quietly go into the night, but the world won't let him. And so he kind of decides that he's going to go, quote unquote, after the real bastards. And so this is kind of a unique revenge story told in the way that only Mark Miller can tell it. And Yeah, it's cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first issue. Like I said, it's punchy. It gets right to it. The first issue did, and I expect that for the rest of the series because that's kind of Miller's style. He doesn't waste time. He gives you all the high spots off the break, and it's just a fun thrill ride. And it's definitely something you should check out. So, King of Spies #2 in comic shops this weekend. Pick up #1 because it's probably also still at your local comic shop at this point. Let's see. So also, guys, be sure to tell us what you are reading this week at your local comic shop. Drop it in the chat. We'll be sure to highlight it throughout the show because, we're giving our recommendations, but there's no reason you can't give your recommendations too. All right. All right. So let's jump over to Natasha and Previews Toy Chat. She's going to show you what's available at your local comic shop in the toy aisle. And we come back, we're going to get into some news. Check it out.
Hey everyone, Natasha here, and I'm going to give you a look at some of the new toys and collectibles in stores today. Here's your Previews Toy Chest for the week of January 12th, 2022. Be sure to check with your local comic shop for availability. And to see more, head over to PREVIEWsworld.com/toychest. There you'll feast your eyes on more hot new collectibles.
All right. Like I said, guys, let us know what you're reading in the chat. I see some people are actually talking about Layla Starr here in the comments, saying actually cover price comments saying this book and Eve, which I think is a Boom Studios title, are great reads. Also following up, Entropy is integral to the universe, which I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting statement there. Monkey Jeebus, it can hurt emotionally, but it needs to happen in terms of death, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I like. I love this. I love when you guys are in the chat and you're thinking for us, and we can just kind of have a back and forth. It's always fun. So thanks for opening that up to everybody, Ashton. Let's get into some news. Ashton, you're at the helm. Let's go down the list of things that happened in the last couple of days. How about it?
I'm ready.
All right.
News.
Why?
that one just kind of snuck up on you and then ran away. That's what that was.
It did.
It's like, huh? What? News? Okay. All right, the floor is yours.
All right, great, wonderful, because I'm here talking about one of my favorite topics, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and more specifically, its spin-off Legend of Korra. So Legend of Korra is getting a new anthology series from Dark Horse, and I am excited. I actually didn't know about this until yesterday, so I'm especially excited. So the upcoming anthology will be called Legend of Korra: Patterns in Time. And it'll be coming out in April, just in time to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Legend of Korra, which is somehow shockingly this year in April. 10 years ago that came out, which seems not right, but okay. And so the anthology has a ton of insane talent associated with it, including the series co-creator, Michael Dante DiMartino, which is kind of the best thing that can happen. There's always a lot of talk around Avatar things about, like, are the original creators involved? Are they not involved? If they're not involved, there's always like ooh kind of reaction. But he's involved in this one, so it's going to be amazing. But you also get Sam Beck, Heather Campbell, Rachel Silverstein, just to name a few. The list is enormous, so you're going to want to check out all of the creators involved in it. And it's just going to open up the stories of Team Avatar again from Korra's perspective. So we'll bring back Korra and Mako and Asami and Bolin and all of those guys for 80 pages of brand new stories, never before seen, some heartwarming, some infuriating, some funny, the whole stretch of everything you could possibly want from a Legend of Korra story. And that'll be hitting comic shops April 12th.
All right, cool. Yeah, I saw that one. I was like, Ashton's gonna be all over this, man. Like, absolutely. And actually, I want to ask you about this just to kind of go off on a little tangent real quick. I saw something. I'm not a Korra person. I've seen some of the Avatar TV show, and I thought it was good. But I saw some people a couple of weeks ago getting into it. Of course, on Twitter, about the inferiority of Korra and how it's a horrible follow-up to Avatar. And like that's the first time I've ever heard that. Like I've mostly heard only praise for Korra. And I saw some people just kind of really getting into it. And I'm just like, have you heard that before? Is that an argument going on in the fandom? Oh, okay, interesting.
It is. It comes up every now and then. People get real hot about, how Korra functions as a spin-off or if it functions as a sequel. And a lot of it has to, I don't want to say a lot of it. Some of it is born out of the way the original characters get treated. And there's some, disgruntled behavior for Aang died too early. Sokka definitely died too early. He didn't really get much of a happy ever after. Like Sokka never got married or had kids. And so part of it is born out of the way the original characters are treated. And part of it is some of the storylines feel really meandering and less pointed maybe than the original series was. But somebody pointed out to me one time, and I thought it was a great analogy. It's really unfortunate because it functions almost in the same way Star Wars catches heat, in that the original is so perfect and so beloved that pretty much anything else is not going to succeed on the same level. I think Korra is a good show. Is it as good as Avatar? No, but the bar was set way too high. You're never going to clear it.
Okay, that's fair. And I mean, definitely the similarities between Star Wars and Avatar are very clear. I think if you're familiar with both of those things. So yeah, okay, that's interesting. I just had never seen that before, and I just was kind of curious, like, whoa, where did this come from? I was clutching my pearls for you. I was like, oh,
yeah. So mad. They're like real hurt about it. They're like, Korra's terrible. And I'm like, I think that's a big claim.
That's a big leap. You're right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I just caught the wind of that, and I just had a moment where I was just like, "Oh God, Avatar beef! Like inter Avatar beef." Okay,
yes,
wow.
inter Avatar beef.
And you know what? It happens to the best of fandoms, I guess. So I guess it's just a rite of passage. There you go. All right, let's move on to the X-Men election. Now I'll handle this one.
All right, take it away.
So the X-Men election is underway. Just like last year, Marvel is allowing the fans to pick the next mutant to join the X-Men roster. Several nominations have been accepted to determine the final member of one of the most iconic teams in the Marvel Universe. Now, the last member of this new X-Men team is in your hands. Each person can only cast one vote, so be sure to read about each nominee over on PREVIEWsworld.com because it's up on our website right now. And I will, however, give you a rundown of who is up for election right here. Ooh. So we have Armor, for those of you who don't remember, from the Astonishing X-Men run by Cassaday and Whedon. Avalanche, who's like, old school Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, like, villain character. Bling. Also Firestar, who I kind of expect to be a fan favorite. I kind of feel like she's going to get pretty far in the votes if she doesn't win ultimately, because she kind of carries a bit of a nostalgia with her because of Spider-Man and her amazing friends, like the 80s cartoon. Okay. Gentle, who I'm not familiar with, I'll be honest with you. Guys, let me know who that character is in the comments. Gorgon, who's like an old school, like kind of Wolverine character. Micromax is another character I'm not entirely familiar with. Penance, aka Monet St. Croix, who I'm definitely a fan of from Generation X. I always like the characters that are rude and say rude things all the time. And Siren, another fan favorite, of course, related to Banshee, and Surge, which I'm another character I'm not entirely familiar with. So yeah, definitely let us know if you're familiar with some of these other characters in the comments. But you can cast your vote now over on Marvel's website, which Johnny just had up, and the cutoff is 11:59 p.m. on January 13th. So that is tomorrow. That's what I was getting mixed up in my head. I was getting the Hake Stakes mixed up with the X-Men election.
All right, there it is. At least it makes sense.
There you go. I was like, where did I get that number from? The new team member will be announced this June during the annual Hellfire Gala, which is the comics event. So remember last year they had the Hellfire. Yeah, they had the Hellfire Gala event, which they had that whole the whole fashion shoot and like the red carpet thing from last year. They're bringing that back this year, and goodness gracious, my email's loud. And I actually kind of dig this. I think it's a fun way to generate conversation about comics and give readers like a stake. I think this is a smart way of doing that. We get so much clickbaity controversy ways of getting people to talk about comics, but they never talk about the story. So Marvel's kind of found a way to get the people to talk about a story. So I'm all for this. I think this is fun.
Yeah.
And I think
it's super smart.
And I think it actually kind of low-key reminds me of, not to say that this was the inspiration for it, but it kind of reminds me of the cast vote to kill Robin back in the 80s.
Oh,
yeah. That's DC did a thing where they were trying to, they were going to give Jason Todd the second Robin the axe because the fans hated him so much, so they let the fans vote for it, and the fans voted to kill him off. But in the process, you got a classic story. So that's all the faces from that. You're like, wait, what? Yes, this is
yeah. I definitely there was a delay in my processing time because I was like, yo, that's so crazy. Like, you can hate a character enough that the publisher's like, all right, well, let's put it to a vote, public execution or not. Which one? Wild. Second, everyone votes for a public execution or whatever form it took place in the comics. Wild. And 3, it's iconic. Wild. What?
Yeah. It's one of those stories that kind of is well traveled in the comics world, or superhero comics world anyway. But yes, the fans voted to kill off a kid.
That's rude. That is rude.
But then, like I said, he got a classic story out of it, and then on top of that, he came back years later as a great I won't even say villain, opposition to Batman for a while. So, going back to the X-Men election, this is a weak list of candidates. Wow, I would have liked to see Franklin on the list. Franklin is not a mutant anymore, according to some of the more recent Dan Slott Fantastic Four comics. So, unless they've changed it again, because I can't always keep up, but that's what I've been hearing. Monkey G was just pointing out that Batman was doing bad in the 80s, so it had to do a little publicity
murder
stuff. That's fair.
I know.
So murder, right? Right. I mean, you know what? Murder is definitely a tool that comics use to get people back into comics. You got the death of Superman, it's something that they do. It's something that we do. So there you go.
Hey, it's a tactic. Why not?
It's a tactic, whatever works sometimes. What's going on with Jeff Lemire? He did something crazy this past week.
He did do something crazy. He really went for it. He doubled down on his relationship with Image and signed an exclusive deal with them for all of his upcoming projects. And this will make Image his home publisher for all of his projects launching in 2022 and beyond, which is kind of crazy. He already has a number of soon-to-be-announced projects lined up with Image, and that'll round out his catalog for 2022. And that includes solo projects that he'll be writing and drawing himself, and also some of his collaborative work. And he said in a statement, having worked with Image on so many projects over the last decade, I've come to appreciate the complete creative freedom and support that they've provided me. I'm excited to make Image the exclusive home for all of my projects in the years to come, both solo projects that I will draw myself and my various collaborations. Bone Orchard and Little Monsters are just the start of what I have planned for this year and beyond. And I have to point out, Bone Orchard Mythos is available on Free Comic Book Day as a prelude. If you want to get involved in Jeff Lemire's work and you're not really sure where to start, that could be a good starting place. But he's got a ton of titles, so I'm sure there's many, many more jumping on points aside from Bone Orchard Mythos.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Look, Jeff Lemire, I've joked before, is the hardest working man in comics.
Oh my God.
It seems like I won't over exaggerate, but I will say, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, every 4 months he's announcing a new project, either with Dark Horse or Image, but now it looks like he's officially making his home at Image. And of course he's been at all the major publishers at this point. I want to say he's been at DC for sure. He's definitely been at Marvel. He's definitely clearly at Image. He's just over Dark Horse. He's just over to crushing it. So, and you know what? I'm all for creators getting stability. You're right. You know what I mean?
For sure.
This when it comes to creators, it's not always a stable environment. So shout out to him for making that happen for himself. Let's see here. Also, I do want to point out, just because 2 other things that Image was in the news for this week, stuff involving the workers union, which, you guys can look that up yourself, but they are acknowledging the workers union. Also a little bit of craziness with Robert Kirkman. That I'll let you guys decide where you want to go with that one. But that some interesting things happening all at the same time around Image. Good news, probably somewhere in the middle, and something sort of like ruh-roh. So there you go. Pokemon Go. Let's talk about this. All right. Filed this under I don't know, file this under like what? Because that was definitely my reaction when I saw this headline. So I'm gonna bury the lead a little bit here, guys, because I want your reaction to be as pure as ours when we first heard this story. 2 LA cops were fired for playing Pokemon Go while on duty, and this is from the BBC, so it is safe to assume this is real. This is not some, New York Daily News type of headline. I think this is a real deal. The 2 cops, denied playing the game, but were sacked. It's the BBC, so we say sacked after an investigation. But here's the kicker, right? A review of their in-car camera footage showed that they had been playing Pokemon Go and chose to pursue a nearby Snorlax, which is, and I love the news item from BBC says a relatively rare catch. Instead of answering a radio call to provide backup. So that right there is kind of like, okay, guys, come on, you can't do that. But here's the thing: what was the radio like Snorlax? What was the radio call? You ready for this? It was a robbery at a nearby Macy's.
Oh, perfect.
And so another officer named Captain Davenport, who also heard the call, could see the Macy's, and he could also see their police car parked in a nearby alley. Right. But here's the thing that's pretty wild. Those nearby officers did not respond to the call, so Captain Davenport did so himself, and he saw the other police officers reverse their car down the alley and leave the area. I mean, I feel like I should be somewhat upset about this, but I'm also laughing because it's just wild. Just absolutely wild.
We should definitely be more upset, but the audacity it takes to be like, robbery? Snorlax. That's the move.
That's the move. I just absolutely blew my mind when I heard that. And I was just sitting there. It had to go in the show because, like, seriously, that's what we're doing our time. All right, I guess so. All right, real quick, jumping back to Jeff Lemire. Monkey Jeebus giving him a shout out. Wrong one. For I liked Animal Man. His Animal Man run at DC Comics was very good. And what else we got here? Cover Price Comics says the Pokemon Go story sounds like a great Punisher plot.
Damn.
Ubaldo can simply go, wow.
That was my reaction.
Actually, no, I will clarify this. Monkey Jeeps is asking, why do creator-owned comics need a union? It's actually for the administrative side. So, the Image Comics day-to-day. And not necessarily for whatever each individual, because Image is really comprised of individual creator houses, So yeah, it's much for the administrative side, like the number crunchers and et cetera, et cetera. He's like, what's this? Monkey James also pointed out, I know of a sheriff that plays too much Pokemon Go. They aren't really that young either.
That's okay.
Apparently,
Pokemon's for everybody.
Pokemon is for everybody. I will say that much. Everybody loves them some Pokemon.
That's true.
So I'm glad I could share that oddball bit of news with you guys. All right, let's jump over to this week's trailer. So this is Tarna from Heavy Metal.
Hey, everybody.
So Heavy Metal's flagship character is Tarna. Arguably, she's the one associated the most with Heavy Metal because of the 1980 animated film, but she hasn't really had a consistent comic from Heavy Metal. Like, that hasn't been a thing, which has always kind of been interesting. But Heavy Metal decided to change that not too long ago, so they have been giving her these miniseries to kind of make her more a part of the brand. So we're going to show you a trailer for Tarna, and when we come back, I'll explain a little bit more about it. All right, check it out.
The universe was born amid chaos. I know this to be true. I witnessed it. Since that birth, I have witnessed the unending conflict between chaos and order, between the darkness and the light.
The deaths are merely the beginning. Tonight, you will be born anew.
Chaos propagates itself, forever churning, extinguishing the light and reducing all to darkness. but light must prevail. Light must have a champion.
God, be good!
Universes will bow to me, beginning with this one, Tarna!
She is Tarna, the last Terrakian.
All right, I guess I should have gave a little bit of a warning on that one. Didn't expect the. Oh wait, can you hear me on this one, Johnny?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, all right, yeah. I guess I should have.
I sent you a message in the private chat.
You sent me a message. You sent me a message telling me to say. I completely forgot about it because we started talking about Pokemon Go. But look, it is heavy metal.
Obviously, that's an adult title.
Obviously, it's an adult title. It's absolutely totally missed that when I sent that one over. So, we got people saying, "Whoa, spicy." Yeah, okay. Anyway, that is Tarna. Oh God, sorry guys. That is Tarna, the last Tarnarchian, right? Which is not easy to say. Terrakian? Is that how it's spelled?
That's what it said. That's what
they probably just said it in the trailer.
They just said it. Yes.
But it's spelled weird. Hold on here. Hold on.
You should write a strongly worded email.
It's spelled so
weird.
You're
heavy metal. I would like to report a complaint.
Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna ask you. Ashton, do you have a pen?
Do I have a pen?
Yeah. Do you have a pen or something to write something down with? Okay.
I have a pen.
So you have a pen. All right. I'm gonna ask you to, because I went back and forth about this repeatedly. I always get so much crap from people offline about this. So it's TAARNA.
You've lost me already.
Right. AKIAN.
There's 2 A's?
Yeah, there's 2 A's. There's actually 3 A's. 4 A's, actually. How do you say that?
I don't know, because now I know how it's supposed to be said, so I can't get my brain to think about it.
Treacherous. The last, what did I say? Tarna, the last Tarrakian. Tarrakian. Okay, maybe I just spelled it wrong in my notes then. Maybe I'm just crazy.
No,
either way.
This is the way it is. Like, just listening to it, they said Terrakian.
I
would be inclined to say Terrakian because it's similar in spelling to Arrakis in Dune.
Okay, fair enough. I also do this thing where, like, if I don't know how to pronounce a word, I kind of give it some weird accent for no reason. I've always done that.
Why not?
I don't know what. I try to make it fancier just to kind of compensate. Cover Price Comics says Tarrakian. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
so we're all right and you're wrong.
You know what? And that's fair. Let that be known. I accept that I'm wrong. I'm gonna let Liz know that I admitted that I was wrong about something on the internet. So there you go. So she gets one, and never again. I love motion comics. So cool. Red Sonja had a great one. Wish we got more full lengths in this format. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool comic. Absolutely. So sorry if your eyes weren't prepared for that one. Next time we'll vet a little bit closer, but it's heavy metal. You guys knew what you were getting yourself into. It's pure. It's meant to be a adolescent fantasy in a lot of ways. So why the heck not? All right. How about we jump into some We've Got Issues?
Yes.
All right. So
I disagree.
The I disagree is like one of my favorite things. Okay, so we're going for a little bit of a spicy topic this week, something that you guys debate a lot. So we're bringing it to the forefront, and we're really going to take the time to unpack it this week. So we asked you guys, how do you feel about the interior artist not being the same as the artist featured on the cover, or the artist that did the cover art? So let's see what you guys had to say. Kyle says, I don't mind if the artists are different, but I learned the lesson 30 years ago. I'm not buying a comic just because it has a cool cover. If the book doesn't have something else to offer, I'm leaving it on the shelf. Ginny says, I do think this is a bit misleading if it's not apparent, especially when the book is sealed and you can't see the inside without purchasing it. Bob says, the purpose of the cover is to catch the eye. The purpose of the interior art is to tell the story and to be finished by deadline, obviously. Some artists are better at one than the other. I have absolutely no problem if they're different people.
That's totally fair.
Cyrus says, totally cool with them being different artists. I will buy multiple covers for the series I read, but I'm not going to buy something I don't collect just because it's a cool cover for the most part. Anthony says, I've never minded that the artist is different as long as the interior art is decent. It's when the interior art is really poorly done that it can be a bit deceiving. Daniel says, oh, I hate having different cover artists from the interior, especially when the style is totally different, like a photorealistic painted cover with a cartoony interior. The clashing styles just makes it feel so disconnected. It seems like a real insult to the interior artists, too, who nowadays seem like they're not considered good enough to draw a compelling image to sell the book. Jeffrey says, I think the interior artist should be the cover artist. It's not misleading, but the artistic style of the work you see on the cover can be very influential in buying, particularly if it is a new collector and or attracting a new reader to the character. Jim says, I only feel misled when the cover art has absolutely nothing to do with the story.
All right, cool. You know what, Johnny, I think, did you mention that you might have some thoughts on this one?
I have some thoughts on this, but I was going to let you guys both take.
I just wanted to first. Just wanted to get you in here now so we can just be part of the discussion. Ashton, what do you think about this? It's interesting because I feel like you encounter this more in superhero comics than like other genres of comics. So, like, are you impacted by this at all when you purchase a book?
So I know we've talked about this in passing before, and it's been mentioned offhandedly, but I really gave a lot of thought about this because I know that it is something that certain comic book readers get really irritated by, and to some extent feel like they've been deceived. I don't have that experience at all personally. So I was trying to figure out why that is, even if I know they're two different artists. And I realized it's because I don't think I have ever purchased a book of any kind, be it a comic book or like a traditional prose book or a graphic novel, without flipping through the pages. And that's not necessarily because I'm trying to learn something about the book, because if you flip through the pages of an interior, like a prose book, doesn't tell you anything about the story. I just like to handle the books. I don't know if that's weird. But because I'm flipping through the pages, I already know before I've bought it that it's not the same thing. So I don't feel like I get misled in that same way just because I'm being so handsy with the product. And like you said, it doesn't happen so much in the types of comics I'm predisposed to picking up. And I've said before, I'm not someone that's necessarily in it for the art per se. Like, I know you follow a lot of artists and you're like, I'll read this because this particular artist did it. I'm more of a character-driven person, so I'm more interested in the story arcs than the art per se. So I don't have that same experience. Also, I like to handle the merchandise. That's just me.
Getting handsy with the product. All right, fair enough. Cool. What about you, Johnny? Do you feel misled, or are you just totally fine with it? You, as someone who loves Scotty Young, this is I was about to say, this is actually very much a thing for you.
It is. I feel very torn, honestly, in this because, as you said, like, as a Scotty Young fan, I mean, I loved his work on I Hate Fairyland, where he drew and wrote the entire story arc, and it was great. Obviously, with his variant covers, he's just doing the artwork on that, and it has nothing to do with, not much to do with what's going on inside. You're not going to see like the little Marvel baby characters inside most of these books. So on one hand, because of the fact that I love Scotty Young's artwork, I will buy a title just for his artwork. But that aside, I feel like it is a little bit misleading. And it's just, it comes down to like, if you want to see one particular style of art, if I see like, a Alex Ross, on the cover and inside it's someone else completely different, it's a little bit misleading, probably more so for new readers as opposed to your seasoned fans who are going into a comic shop, like Ashton said, just to read the story. Right. If you're already familiar with the story, then I don't think it's a problem because you're already invested. But if you're trying to capture new readers, then I think it could be a problem. However, what I'm about to say may be a little bit inflammatory, and I just want to say,
I'm ready.
First and foremost, I am a Marvel fan. I love Marvel comics. I am a Cosmic Ghost Rider fan. I love the character. However, and I apologize, Marvel, and I don't want this to ruffle anyone's feathers. In 2018, when I think Cosmic Ghost Rider had a title coming out, and they released like 20 different variant covers of all these different titles that had Cosmic Ghost Rider fighting then Fantastic Four and X-Force and this and that. He was on like 20 different covers, but he was not in any of the single issues. It was just to promote like that one book that he was in. I understand what they're trying to do, and I understand them trying to promote a new character who's like got a hot title coming out. But it's just really frustrating to like, it feels like a shameless marketing ploy. And I get the fact that they want to promote the character, but I think like it would to have 20 variant covers of a character on a book who's not actually in those books to promote one title over here. It just seems a little excessive to me, but that's my personal opinion.
I kind of go back and forth with that because I understand like if there's a character's anniversary, right? And so I think not too long ago they did a Fantastic Four anniversary covers across their entire line, like, you know what I mean? And so I get that, I understand that, I think that's okay. I actually I won't even say I came down hard on this, but like I always kind of had this attitude that like I really read comics for stories, and I think it's only in the last couple of years that I've kind of really, I mean, obviously it's a visual medium, right? But I've really had to kind of understand that there are people that clearly there are artists, but there are people, I'm trying to word this carefully, but there are people that actually only collect comics for art. You know what I mean? Like, and so I kind of had to acknowledge that, my whole attitude was for a long time like, oh, it's an art form and it's about the story, and that's really important. And I always follow writers that don't really follow artists. And I think in the last couple of years, I've just had to kind of acknowledge and just kind of accept that people buy these things just for the art sometimes, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, and it's also a great way to sell comics. I mean, if you look at the whole image revolution in the 90s, a lot of that was like based off of art, and if you look at the 90s in general, a lot of the industry success was based off of art. And there's some people that lament that period, like, I wish it could go back to that. And I kind of get that now. I don't think I necessarily always understood that. My issue though is kind of what Johnny said, which is that I don't like it when you put Alex Ross on the cover, and the interior artist is something from Steven Universe, looks like Steven Universe, you know what I mean? Like that's not to knock the Steven Universe art style, but I just want consistency. And that's always kind of been my thing, is just give me consistency. It can't be that much of a jarring difference between what's on the cover and what's on the inside. And I say that specifically for the main cover, for cover A, you know what I mean? If you want to do like 6 variant covers for your book or whatever, at least make cover A the artist sits on the interior, or at least somebody who's complementary to that artist. That's kind of my whole thing.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. I don't know, Ash, you look like your wheels were turning. What's going on in there?
Well, I was actually working through a thought that you pretty much said nearly to what I was about to say. So I don't know, how necessary it is to say it at this point. It might be redundant, but I think the key word here is jarring. Like, it's one thing if, like you said, they're complementary and maybe you don't feel like you're losing that much from the cover to the interiors, but when they're so different that you feel like you've picked up the wrong thing or it's not even the story that you expected, I think that's where it becomes problematic.
No, yeah, and that's kind of my thing too. We actually got a few comments in here. First of all, Cover Price Comics back in saying, "Yep, Cosmic Ghost Rider destroys the Marvel Universe. Gwen and MJ had cover series like that. Deadpool 30th anniversary. So he's just acknowledging, yes, that is something that happens. Jim Lee and Stanley Lau are sought after for the artwork. They are, and Stanley Lau, Art Germ Lau, gets a lot of work and does a lot of covers. And I can't hate on it. Like I used to kind of hate on it, but I can't hate on it anymore. What else we got here? Dave Brown saying, I like a great artistic cover, but I agree that the interior art has to be high quality to go with the story. Yeah. And that's my big thing, is I just don't want it to be like night and day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's a different market for each of these, though. I feel like when like Monkey Jeebus is talking about with like Stanley Art Germ Lau, that's a different kind of market or an audience that are going to go and buy those comics. Like people, those are the kinds that, like me with like Scotty Young, we're the ones that are going to actively seek out those variant covers, whatnot. But I think more in terms of like the general reader, like I was saying, like for new readers especially, if you pick up a book and it's like something on the front is what's different than what's on the inside, then that's where it becomes a problem. But I just think we have to like separate the two different audiences that may be going for these different types of cover art.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair, and 100%. Let us know what you guys think. Continue letting us know what you think in the comments. Like we'll continue to highlight. But we're at the 0 hour here, so we're done with We've Got Issues. How about we do this week's poll, Ashton? What's going on Free Comic Book Day right now? What fires have you started?
I have started a fire. It is National Take the Stairs Day, which is a very important day. You should take the stairs. But we want to talk about stairs and their relationship to the fate of the multiverse. So we had to ask you guys, is the Hulk and his dislike of stairs responsible for the events of Loki and the fracturing of the sacred timeline?
And by the way, we have to point out that this is an actual thing. It is National Take the Stairs Day. That's real.
It is. We didn't make it up.
We did not make this up.
So all right, let's get into this, guys. I am actually kind of amused by the idea that the Hulk taking the stairs was one in a series of in a domino effect of things that caused the outcome of Infinity War, I guess. Well, actually, it caused the outcome of Endgame. I'm sorry, but where do you stand on this, Ashton and Johnny?
I first have to agree that it is objectively hilarious to think that just like the Hulk having a toddler level temper tantrum is responsible for all of his outcomes. And I purposefully didn't put like a middle, like a maybe, or it's a more complicated than that choice, because I like to make people pick a side in these things that are very obviously more gray area than black and white. Because I know the obvious answer here is a gray answer. I think he is. I think Loki would have done what Loki wanted to do anyway, even if the Hulk hadn't bust through the door and created all kinds of problems. But he did bust through the door and create all kinds of problems, so he is responsible.
Actually, I see some people are a little confused by this. The Avengers going back led to that. I just want to point out, the point we're making here is actually that in Endgame, as Ashton kind of pointed out, the Hulk has to take the stairs. He opens the door and knocks Tony Stark down. I want to call it the Cosmic Cube because that's what I always knew it as. The Tesseract slides across the floor. Loki picks it up, and then you got a Loki TV show out of the whole thing. But also, it kind of also affects the continuing events of Endgame, because of course they have to go even further back in time to go get a hold of it again. So, Johnny, what about you? Where do you fall on this debate?
First of all, let's just say that Sticksbox 73 comic is saying Hulk should have just jumped down the stairs of the true villain of Loki.
Yes.
As entertaining as this is, and I've seen memes like it, I was actually just trying to bring up this. Like, I know there's one, and I showed you this the other day in the meeting, where it's like a bunch of like little tiny dominoes, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like Hulk hating stairs, Loki. But on multiple levels, the fault is actually with Tony Stark.
Oh, damn. Okay. Hot take. Tell us, Johnny.
Because first of all, the Avengers had to go back in time to come up with this plan to get the Tesseract and the Loki scepter. So if Tony Stark hadn't developed time travel, they wouldn't have been back there in the first place. If Tony Stark also hadn't said maximum weight load capacity exceeded, and told Hulk to take the stairs in the first place, then Hulk wouldn't have had to take the stairs. So I say the blame is with Tony Stark.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of comeuppance, isn't it? In that regard, like he kind of got what he kind of reaped what he sowed in that regard. Actually, that's a fair point. What are people saying online? Like, so we got. I'm gonna say, we got 2 yeses, 3 yeses.
I said yes.
You said yes. What you said, Troy?
I say yeah. I say absolutely. I think it's fun. I find it to be a fun prediction theory.
All right, let's deal with it. And 63.9%.
So this is definitely taking hold of the internet because I didn't even know about this until like yesterday when Johnny brought it up. Oh, people are still voting. Look at that. So yeah, like apparently like people have already made up their mind about this, which is actually pretty hilarious. Dave Brown says you can't diss Hulk without expecting a backlash. That's totally fair. I respect that. All right, cool. Let's jump on over to this week's Comic Shop Shoutout. Ashton, who is the Comic Shop Shoutout for this week?
Mm-hmm. This week's Comic Shop Shoutout goes to Cowabunga Comics, which is a great name. It comes from Jalen Korth, and he says they are absolutely amazing. It's somewhat of a drive for him. Every time he goes is totally worth it. So we'll show you some images from Cowabunga Comics at the end of the show. You can take a look inside of their store. If you want us to shout out your local comic book shop on the show, find us on social media, tag your shop. If they don't have a handle, just leave their name and use the hashtag SupportYourLCS. We'll find your shop and shout them out on the show and give them some love.
All right, cool. And that is it for Previews World Weekly, actually. I want to remind you guys to like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow me at Previews World on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitch. And where can they find you, Ashton?
You can find me at Free Comic Book Day on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. YouTube too, but we don't post loads of videos there, if I'm being honest. Those Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, come hang out, come yell your opinions, get some inside looks at the Free Comic Book Day books coming out in May. It's a fun time.
All right, and that's it for Previews World Weekly. Oh, you know what? Actually, I do want to remind people, later this month, Ashton's going to be part of a saga panel. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be fun. It's going to be Anamia, Ashton, and one other guest, and they're going to talk about Saga just in time for the new the latest issue that has been long in waiting to hit comic shops. So if you want to catch up with Saga with them, by all means check that out. And yes, that is it for Previews World Weekly. I'm sorry guys for the trailer. That's all I've been thinking about for like the last 20 minutes. I'm like, oh god.
Hey, you remember that day we got fired?
Right, yeah, right. Yeah,
because you're probably thinking about Pokemon Go. I think I've heard this news story before.
Right. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I probably should have just maybe looked at that trailer a little bit more carefully before we played it. But you know what? Shout out to Heavy Metal Comics because they did make an awesome comic. So whatever. That's it for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm your other host, Ashton Greenwood.
And hopefully we'll see you at the Spinner Rack next week, baby. We'll find out.
Don't forget that you can catch Previews World Weekly streaming live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific at Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.